patients are vulnerable, in a vulnerable state. They go to hospital to be treated, to receive care, and it's absolutely shocking to think that some workers in our hospitals would have this attitude. And as Alex Rivchin said, it's concerning that anti-Semitism is so deeply embedded that it would even infect the health system. But as well as condemning it and saying I'm very pleased that the police are investigating it and it's been appropriately condemned, I actually think we have to go further. I think we need to call upon the CEOs of all of our hospitals to conduct inquiries into their own workforce and to ensure that they have appropriate policies in place and appropriate codes of conduct to make this completely unacceptable. It might be that these particular individuals are outliers, and it might be that it's more widespread. But we need to reassure the Jewish community that they can go into hospitals, receive the sort of care that anyone else might expect, and that they do expect. And we need the CEOs of hospitals to take action. It might be preventative action, it might just be making inquiries, but they need to look at their own codes of conduct and make sure that this kind of anti-Semitic behaviour is completely outlawed and unacceptable.
Well, the New South Wales Health Secretary, Gillian Segal, Susan Pearce, has said that New South Wales Health condemns the views expressed and behaviour demonstrated in this video. I assure everyone, she says, that every person in New South Wales receives safe, respectful care in our hospitals and health services. And further, the Federal Health Minister, Mark Butler, said that the views of two nurses run contrary to the most fundamental principle of healthcare. Now, you say that those outright condemnations are not enough.
Well, I think they're very important and they're necessary. But I think we've come to a stage in relation to seeing incidents of anti-Semitism where reassurance and words are not quite enough. They're important and they're necessary, but they're not sufficient. I think we need to see the CEOs of the hospitals, of the healthcare providers, actually confirm that their policies and their procedures and their codes of conduct outlaw this, just as we've asked for universities not only to condemn what's happened on their campuses, but to review their codes, to review their documentation. We need the CEOs of the hospitals to do the same. We need to make sure that this is embedded in their procedures and in their policies.
So you're calling for vetting of existing staff or potential staff?
Well, I think that will be up to them. I think firstly we need to look at the guidelines, look at the guardrails that they have in place and see what they do. And then I think we should engage in dialogue with them and see what more needs to be done. And I think this is a broader issue. If we're seeing it in hospitals, are there other service providers where the CEOs of those businesses ought to take a very careful look now and to make sure that anti-Semitism is not infecting their businesses? This is something important for all Australians. I think the Australia that I know of wouldn't expect any less. And if we're seeing it rise up and peak up at all sorts of places where we wouldn't have expected it, we should now call on these CEOs to do something.
Have you been in touch with any CEOs of hospitals with your suggestion?
No, I haven't as yet. I certainly would like to get them to think about what it is that they can do, maybe through the AMA, and come back to me. But I do think it's not just a question of condemnation. Just as we've seen incidents of anti-Semitic hate and violence, and the response has been to strengthen the law, here I think we just don't want to see condemnation. That's necessary, but I just don't think it's sufficient.
Okay. So Special Operation Everlight was established late last year in response to incidents of anti-Semitism. Strikeforce Pearl was set up by New South Wales Police late last year. What's the Jewish community telling you about how they're feeling after now several incidents of anti-Semitism across Australia?
Well, obviously the Jewish community is feeling concerned and feeling vulnerable. And I think this latest incident is, sort of even something on top of what they were feeling, that they thought hospitals were places they could go to, recover and receive care. And suddenly this has been thrust upon them. Now, I'm hoping that this is not widespread and this is indeed a very isolated incident. But I think that's where we need business to step up as well. CEOs, hospitals are large, businesses and the CEOs need to make sure that their policies deal with this and make sure it is outlawed and unacceptable. And it's not just a matter of the politicians condemning it, which they must, but actually of us in society and our business leaders agreeing with that.
So you say you haven't been in touch with CEOs of hospitals?
No, I haven't. I haven't as yet. I mean, this has only happened this morning,
Okay.
and I've been engaged with other things. But it's certainly something I will do. But I think it would be important that they hear my message and obviously come back to me.
Will you also be in touch with the government and the Prime Minister to make sure that the CEOs of hospitals do take the action that you'd like them to do?
I certainly will be talking to the Prime Minister's office.
And what sort of response do you expect from him?
Oh, I'm sure I will get a good hearing. Absolutely.
Gillian Segal, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.